The Civil War in 1861 was a stormy and turbulent time in American history, but war doesn't happen overnight. War is often the final outcome of unresolved issues over many years. In this context, the sole reason for dispute was a difference of opinion over slavery. Let's go back 41 years before the Civil War. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise was created. Amid growing sectional tensions over the issue of slavery, the US Congress passed a law that admitted Missouri to the Union as a slave state and Maine as a free state, keeping the balance between the free and slave states, while banning slavery from the remaining Louisiana Purchase lands located north of the 36 by 30 parallel. To find out more about the division between the North and South pre-Civil War, watch my video on this by hitting the link above or in the description. Let's continue. The Missouri debates of 1819 served as a significant pivot in the United States' sectional controversy over slavery. The Missouri Territory applied to be accepted by the Union as a slave state in 1819. Similar to a terms and conditions policy, Missouri needs to accept this policy that is created by their boss, US Congress, to become a state. The House of Representatives put forward the first bill to create this policy, the Tulmidge Amendment, offered by Congressman James Tulmidge Jr. of New York. The purpose of the Tulmidge Amendment was to stop the importation of slaves into Missouri and gradually liberate those already in bondage. Slaves were to be freed once they reached the age of 25. The Tulmidge Amendment was passed by the House of Representatives, but mainly because North had a larger population than the South and therefore more members were represented. However, the Senate passed the bill without the amendment due to the Senate being divided equally between slave and free state representatives. Because of the disagreement between the House and Senate, both sides were forced to come together to pass a bill. This is known as a conference. After many months of debate, Henry Clay, a member of the Senate, proposed a compromise: Missouri to become a slave state, Maine to become a free state, and no further slavery above the 36 by 30 North line. This was accepted under much scrutiny. Congress and the nation debated the acceptability of the Missouri State Constitution. A presidential proclamation in August 1821 recognized Missouri's admission with no comment on the controversial clauses. It was official. Missouri was a slave state. If you are enjoying this video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and if you want to know more about how slavery began in America, watch my video on the Atlantic slave trade by hitting this link above or in the description. Back to it. So why was there so much controversy over this? Well, before the compromise, the free and slave states held 11 each, after Alabama became a slave state in 1819 without a hitch of controversy. It was expected to become a slave state. It's south and surrounded by other slave states, but Missouri, it's north, right beside another north state. Slavery was supposed to be on the way out. New states were expected to have restrictions. What was going on? It was a real scare for the free states. A surprise reality check that slavery was not going to melt away. It was increasing. It was a serious issue, but it was difficult to address. Once they voted for a compromise, the Northerners that accepted caused a great divide in their own party. These people valued the Union over their particular stance on slavery. Preserving the Union and the sovereignty of states like Missouri was more important to them than the true issue at stake. These views were fragments from the former Federalist Party under Alexander Hamilton that had died out prior to the compromise. This process of thinking kept the states together for some time, but did not address the true problem of slavery. Moderates in both sections were not helpless in the face of the divide over slavery. Reoccurring incidents similar to the Missouri crisis would continue to stretch the gap. Thomas Jefferson, former president of the United States, put it this way in his private letter to John Holmes about the Missouri Compromise: "Like a fire bell in the night, awakened and filled me with terror. I considered it at once as the knell of the Union. It is hushed, indeed, for the moment, but this is a reprieve only, not a final sentence. A geographical line coinciding with a marked principle, moral and political, once conceived and held up to the angry passions of men, will never be obliterated, and every new irritation will mark it deeper and deeper. I can say with conscious truth that there is not a man on earth who would sacrifice more than I would to relieve us from this heavy reproach in any practicable way." In this letter, Jefferson envisioned a terrible outcome. This passage sums up his views perfectly, but this is a reprieve only, not a final sentence. Often it is not understood that this conflict is the tip of the iceberg, following on from many previous arguments surrounding slavery over many years. The compromise was a temporary solution that put the issue of slavery on ice for 30 years. The issues this crisis raised festered throughout the 1820s and were a crucial signpost on what later became clear was the road to the Civil War. It extended the problem of slavery in the United States, pushed some Southern representatives to more extreme pro-slavery positions, put a further wedge between slave and free states. Arkansas was the only other landmass that was expected to become a slave state after the Missouri Compromise. This changed in 1846. The USA received more land south of the 30-36 North Line through the Mexican War. More slave states were able to be formed that the compromise did not initially plan for. Huge win for the South. By 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act cemented an inevitable war with the proposition of more slave states above the North Line. In hindsight, it is simple to see a turning point that takes the path towards further conflict. Conflict leads to pressure. Pressure leads to force. Force leads to war. War leads to a conclusion. But if we do not learn from our past, many more conclusions will occur. I have no doubt that the Missouri Compromise led to further problems in the future and was a cause of the Civil War. Could the Civil War have been prevented? Let me know your answer in the comments. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more US history coming soon.